this in-game sound real quick. Do I think true solo will be a thing? Okay, let me start by saying something. Yeah, let me start this by talking about Fatshark in general. Let me see if I can push this back a little bit. Maybe I'll pull back a little, turn the in-game volume down. Okay, these are good questions. These are some good questions. All right, but let me start by talking about Fatshark as soon as I turn this volume down in-game, so it's not annoying. So Fatshark is up to like 70 people right now. My guess is when V1 was really being made, it was more like 40, maybe even lower than that. So, and not only that, right? So these guys have been working on V2 since very early after V1, like by summer after V1's released. They were committed to it earlier than that, and they've been working pretty much full time on it. So that's 70 people working really hard on a new game. That's an iteration of the game they just put out. And you could tell with Vermintide 1 that they put their blood, sweat, and tears on it. A bit of a note on that. So the CEO, Martin, who maybe Martin or Martin, I can't. As I said, my foreign pronouncement needs improvement. Oh god, the producer, A. It'll come to me after it matters, of course. But you could tell that this was like the game they wanted to go in on. They're both big Vermintide guys. They're both big tabletop role-playing guys. And by the way, the boss, the CEO, he plays Vermintide like every day, right? So they really like this game. This Vermintide 1, they were trying to build the game that they wanted to play. And I've always said with Vermintide, like, there's a lot of ways that you could try to sell this game. There's a lot of elevator pitches you can make, and one of the elevator pitches you hear all the time is just Left 4 Dead with rats. And yeah, it is a sword and sorcery Left 4 Dead, and that's like mechanically a lot of the inspiration for it. But what I've always thought was so awesome about Vermintide is like it was the first action game where I felt like I finally was actually playing the part of the wizard in my Baldur's Gate party, right? Like I played all the classic RPGs. I've been playing RPGs since I was a kid. This was the first time I felt like I was actually going on an adventure. I was going on a mission with my sword and sorcery team. And the other big thing in their vision for Vermintide. So what is their vision for Vermintide? It's great lore and feel and flavor such that it actually really feels like you're in a sword and sorcery adventure. That's one. Two, team. It is team oriented, it is team centric. Team is what they're designing around. So yeah, will true solo be possible? I think we'll find a way. But that is absolutely like not, and that's like the very periphery of their concerns. They want it to be a great team game where people can play different roles. Like they want tank to be a thing, right? They want support to be a thing. They want the range guy versus the front guy versus the side slasher, the rogue. In other words, the ranger versus the fighter versus the rogue or thief, depending on what it is. And I don't actually know what the terms are for Warhammer. I'm more of a D&D guy because of Shadows of Om and that kind of stuff. I played the hell out of those games when I was a kid. Okay, so team base. And the last thing is it's an action game, which means that although even with Vermintide 1 and even more so with Vermintide 2, there are going to be RPG progression elements, right? You're going to level up. When you level up certain numbers, you're going to unlock different choices for skill tree, etc., etc. There's going to be different classes. There are going to be RPG progression elements. But this is, again, it's an action game. Yes, your character levels up, but this is what I've always said about Vermintide 1. If you want to beat Kata, first you work on your friends list and your ability to communicate. So step 0 is buy a mic. Step 1 is be sociable and meet good guys and retain good guys. Step 2 is gain map knowledge and game knowledge, right? So watch a video, practice, deliberate practice. And only then step 3 is really worry about your gear, because your gear is going to take care of itself for the most part. I think that Vermintide 2 is going to have that same dimension, where the progression elements are going to enable us to play different roles in a kind of like metagame, or to like try to do little meme stuff. Like I like to make real things work, and I know a lot of people do too. So I think we're gonna have way more options to make other things happen and work well. But it's not going to be that the RPG elements overwhelm it. The action elements, the game knowledge, the teamwork, that's where the majority of your ability to beat something is going to come from. Okay, and then I can talk about way more specifics from that. Okay, so that's their vision. And then a little bit about Fatshark. So there's 70 guys now. And on 2 of the 3 nights we were there, a good chunk of them came out and closed the bars with us to talk Vermintide, right? Like their level of knowledge, both game-centric knowledge and technical knowledge, I assume, just based off of the product, the quality of their product. I'm not like a dev, right? So I don't know the very detailed elements of their job, but just based off of the quality of the product that they're making, and the fact that they have over twice the guys, or probably I would say like twice the number of people really working on V2 than they did on V1. But anyways, the quality is going to be through the roof. The number of and amount and depth of the product is going to be way higher just based on dev time, and their passion is obvious. So they could go toe to toe with 4 of the most, hyper nerdy, hyper Vermintide loving, know all the little mechanics in the game kind of people in the world, right? And match us knowledge for knowledge and passion for passion. And that was really cool. Like, I get really excited about things. That's just my personality. And there was plenty of the guys in the team that whatever their realm was it the sound design, was it like more lore centric stuff like the Magnus who works on all the voice lines, like whatever their realm of passion was, they matched us like tit for tat on knowledge and passion. So it's important to know that the people who are making this game like really love this game. This is not like a big studio where whatever the product's being made is that's what the why are we making Call of Duty 7? Because why would you not make Call of Duty 7? That's not why they're making this game. Well, to be fair, it's smart to make Vermintide 2 as well. It's smart to make Vermintide 2 from a business perspective, I bet. Because V1 did so great, there's going to be such strong word of mouth. But anyways, my point is that they're very passionate, very knowledgeable guys, and it was really awesome spending time with them. And I think they really appreciated it too. Like, they brought out players who really like know the game, care about the game. Yeah, there are other people who know it too, but they picked 4 people who really know the game and care about the game, and they wanted to talk to us because they are invested, not just professionally, not just business-wise, but personally in Vermintide 2 being an awesome game, right? Remember, the CEO goes home and plays the game every night. They care. This has always been a passion project for them, and it was really obvious. So I have a military background. I teach now. Like, it's obvious when you go into an office, and the office and the people there are turned on about what they do, that they give a shit. And it's obvious when they're phoning it in, and you could tell they cared. So no matter what we talk about today, specific-wise, or whatever area it is, the important thing to note is that they really heard what the feedback was on V1, and they've addressed those things specifically. And the people making this game know what they're doing, are working really hard, and really care. So, and for guys, for the players, I know there's hundreds of us, but for the players who really love this fucking game, went and tried Vermintide 2, and we were all individually, and somewhat for different reasons, blown away. So that's like a really strong endorsement. Okay, so I will stop babbling, and now I'm going to start looking. Oh, okay, and this is my fancy hoodie, but my wife loves sharks. Like, hold on. This is not a coincidence. My wife loves sharks, so this will be the only time you see this sweatshirt on stream, more than likely. Because after this, she will be stealing this shark sweatshirt, and I will not see it again. Except when I see my wife. Okay, so I'm now going to go back to the beginning and kind of look at these questions and see what I can talk about. I mean, I have some topics I can talk about that I can just pick, but I prefer to let you guys set the direction if I can find a way to have it stop jumping back. Okay. Does the game felt dumbed down? Still a lot of depth? in terms of movement, weapons, etc.? Great question. So how did it feel? It Vermintide. It felt like Vermintide. I think dodging has been tuned down a little bit. One, it felt like it was harder to just randomly dodge into density and just dodge things. Like I felt like you had to be more precise when you dodged. The cadence was down. Alpha's going to have dodge-centric traits, whatever, like progression relative traits. So I don't know how that's going to end up working out. There's no way anyone can play this game enough right now before release to know what endgame meta is going to feel like. It's impossible. We'll get there when we get there, right? And they're going to put people, I haven't mentioned this yet, but the boss has committed to putting people on this game long term, right? They're going to be developers, so people who make decisions about balance, weapon feel, all these things that still work on V2 after V2 is released, for sure. So we'll get there when we get there. But the bottom line is the mechanics were hard, and they were Vermintide. And with a number of new enemies and the interaction, but Vermintide, the difficulty in Vermintide 1 was always different tactical threats stacking up. And there are going to be way more and way more variety of enemies. There's going to be over 20 enemies. We didn't actually see all of the enemies. They're still making more enemies. And when they start stacking up, that's when the game goes crazy. And it's going to be even more of that. So as a player, you're going to have to learn how to instantly recognize and respond to, because in Vermintide, doing well often means knowing how to respond. We're going to have a huge increase in the sheer number of types of scenarios that you have to respond to, which is going to make the game have a much longer learning curve, and presumably there's going to be a lot more really sharp spikes in intensity. I think it's going to be a very hard game. I think it's going to take us months to get really good, one. And I can keep responding to this question, but maybe we'll pick this up later. But two, they're also committed to keeping a late game that is of interest to players, to hardcore players. So the heroic deeds system, for example. So even as we get close to one ceiling, to one mountain, there'll be another mountain, right? You're not going to have to go into mod land, I think. For 99.9% of the player base, you're not going to have to go into mod land to continue to be challenged. I think one of the big problems with Vermintide 1 is it was so good, you wanted to be good, but the only real obvious aspirational challenge was Cataclysm, and then you had to go outside of the core game to keep yourself interested. That's not going to be the case with V2. So hurrah. Okay, enough. Let me babble more. So Sin, thanks for that question. It's a good question. So William, whose name is not at all spelled William, but apparently pronounced William, asked, do you think true solos will be a thing? We'll find a way. There will be, no kidding, there'll be a heroic deed for it, no question. Is it balanced around that? No. Again, to everyone on the Steam forums, this is a team game. That's what the CEO on down thinks. True solo is going to be an accident. It's not an intent. It's not a design parameter that they're thinking about. It's like a very tertiary. It's not primary. It's not secondary. It might not even be tertiary. It might be a quaternary concern. So get it out of your head if you're thinking to themselves, oh, they brought JSAT there, so all they care about is true. No. No. Okay. Okay, what else? What am I most excited about for V2? That doesn't follow it. I think, Jesus, Shade is really cool. It's really fun to play. But I think what I'm most excited about is one of the big problems with V1 is with the trait system and the tendency to have lots of small non-armored targets, that specific slashing type attacks that are also linked to a lot of regrowth or something are way prioritized, whereas single target weapons and two-handed weapons and such, they don't have as much of a purpose. Even if they were quote-unquote balanced they're not balanced in a vacuum. They're balanced around Skaven. Chaos have a lot more variety and a lot more tough enemies, right? And there's also a lot more armor in this game than ever before. So one of the things I'm excited about is there's going to be more organic reason than ever, without balancing their killing power through the roof, to bring two-handed weapons and single-target weapons, one, and two, the way that the traits are being balanced and the way that the enemy composition is being balanced, and the way that the action team, the guys who are worried about making animations and swing patterns and stuff, and you can't believe how much time they spend thinking about individual weapons, swing patterns. They think very much, is there ever going to be a reason to chain from light to heavy, from heavy to light, to do block canceling on the third attack? They think about this. They know how we're going to use it, and they think to themselves, how can we make it intriguing to use in various ways? And I think it's going to be few and far between the circumstances where it turns out the best way to use the weapon is just click, click, right click, 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 right click, or similar. I think the game is going to be much more fresh, and there's going to be a lot more reasons to use a large variety of weapons. So thank goodness. Thank goodness for that. I know I'm so far behind, but I didn't want to miss any good ones. Is block revive working? I think it's working. There are also going to be a number of not traits. What are we calling them? Anyways, character type specific things that are oriented on around clutching, right? So there's going to be proactive ultimates. Go out and kill the things in various ways. Go out and support various play styles. Kill the things like leap into battle, and then you get like an attack speed buff or something. And the shade, but there's also, and by the way, shade can revive from invis, so that's a very multifaceted. This is what the goal is for the ultimates, and they can call them what they want. I'm going to end up calling them ultimates just because I have a Dota background. Cooldowns, special. You can't call them specials, right? Because we already have specials, so it's kind of annoying. But the idea is for each one of them to have an obvious application such that a brand new player can be like, oh, I get to do something cool. But then there's also supposed to be subtle applications so that you can learn to maximize it more as you go on. Because they're thinking they're thinking definitely in terms of new player experience, but they're also thinking in terms of, is this game going to be fun the 300th time you play Shade? And you come up with something new for the first time, right? So one of the things I was realizing is I was kind of focusing on the grabber specials, right? And I was realizing that it was really hard to respond to one of these guys, to like preempt him. The grabber specials were that dangerous. So one of the things I was doing was positioning myself nearest to the person I thought that the grabber was going to go for. In other words, the most alone player. And invisible, so I know I wouldn't be the one reacted on, so I could react instantly to the grabber, right? And I didn't realize that at first. I realized it after a couple hours of play. So I think the idea is that every one of them is going to have an obvious application, and then many, many layers of interest. And then there's going to be proactive, and there's going to be like reactive ones. So there are definitely going to be ultimates that are around getting the team back up and responding to some sort of clutch scenario. And then whatever the balance is on day one, we're going to work with them. They're going to keep working to make sure that there's depth and interest to everyone. They have a lot of telemetry. In other words, they can see what's being played, what's not being played, and that can be addressed later to keep things fresh. So just like games like Dota, LOL, Overwatch, etc., do balance patches, Diablo 3, do balance patches every so often, where you mix up the meta, you shake up the meta, you see what people are using, you see what people are not using, and you bring those guys up so there's another reason to play a different way. Okay, anyways, enough babble. What else? Did the careers feel seriously meaningful and different? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. They're going to feel very different. It's going to really feel like there's 15 different ways to play. That's my guess. They're all going to have different focuses, and the passives and ultimates alone make them feel rather different. And they also get different trees to a degree. Yeah, very much different trees. They're going to feel different, for sure. Are there a lot of percent procs on traits? In other words, how random traits are in V2 overall? From J Hearth. So what they're trying to do, remember how for the longest time you couldn't really tell when you got a proc off, like it was hard? So what we did, like Prop Joe and whoever else worked on this, if I'm missing, I'm sorry, worked on visual indicators. So first of all, they're trying to do more visual indicators. But second of all, one of the things that we kind of asked for is, well, maybe it could make a sound when it goes off. But the problem is there's so many different on-hit traits that you end up just getting do-do-do-do-do, and like 1,000 different noises, and they all mean the same thing, or maybe they'll mean many. There's so many amazing sounds in this game, and the sound has so much information content that if they tried to make a different sound for everything, it would just be overwhelming. So what they're trying to do instead is tie everything to the crit. so that every time a crit goes off, you know that all your on hits go off at the same time, which I think is a great idea to help like make the game cleaner, and it may be interesting for builds, right? So if you have a couple, you could maybe stack on hit procs you're interested in and stack crit. But were there a million different traits? No. A million different on hit traits like we have now? No. It's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot less on hit traits that come from your weapons in the final build. What else? Anders. Anders was the A name. You're absolutely right, Jay. Am I wearing my Fatshark underwear? Does V2 class add a meaningful alteration to core gameplay? Yeah. It's absolutely going to enable differences in gameplay. So here's an example. The Slayer, that's the name, right? The dual melee on the on Bardin absolutely enables a much more aggressive, just go at it gameplay that feels very different. So Crindy was playing him a lot, and he was just giggling the whole time because what we ended up coining the name playstyle enabling ultimates, right? So maybe there's responsive ultimates and such, but there's playstyle enabling ultimates. And the Slayer is a perfect example because his allowed you to leap in, so you could kind of choose where you wanted to jump in on things and really go at them. And then once you got there, the way that the ultimate cooled down is it was based off of damage. So there was like this flow to it. So just like in Dota, there are characters that feel like they're very combo-y. You had that similar thing too, but then you had more like caster type ones that are more reactive. They're a little bit less, but they feel very different. Sienna is a Kensai mage dual class. Yeah, she is, Joe. Prop Joe is saying she's that's from like Baldur's Gate 2. As the classic power gamer combo. Yeah, as usual, my suspicion is Carillion might be a little too much power game, but there's no way that we can really figure that out now. We're gonna have to just figure it out as the beta gets played for thousands of hours and then post that. I'm so far behind right now. Is there a cinematic in the beta version? I don't know. That's Haidu. Is there a cinematic in beta version you play? I guarantee there's going to be something. Honestly, if there was one, I didn't notice, which doesn't mean there wasn't one. A quick note on the visuals. I think the beta, like the alpha, whatever you want to call it, the demo they put together, it did emphasize a variety of play, and it felt very atmospheric. Like when you walked into the new area with that big iconic arch, you heard the deep bassy vroom, and you got that feel that came from the sound design. Though the sound, the iteration in sound design and how good the sound felt was in the demo. What was not obvious in the demo, in my opinion, was just how breathtakingly good the game looks. In terms of like Witcher 3, just beautiful to play, yes, but also just in terms of variety and like little details of the aesthetics that bring you into the world. The game just, for example, Horde of Magnus, for much as I love it, kind of feels like a hallway that has city props around it. Do you know the term Potemkin? Like a Potemkin village? You know, a lot of games have a Potemkin feel, right? Like it was just, you know, it was not really a village. It was put together to be a village. Not really a forest. It was put together to be a forest. In this game, it really felt like you were in the forest and you were in the city. Like really into it. And there's so many, like, I don't even want to say it, but you're going to be like jaw-droppingly shocked on some of the maps. Okay. That has a different connotation here. Who is JLB? Jay, who are you? Are you on Reddit? Okay, I am, again, from military background and such, I'm used to calling the colonel, etc., the boss, because that's just what everybody says. But yeah, when I'm saying the boss, I mean Martin, the CEO. So Sneg said that the difference between Assassin's Creed 1 and 2, they're both great games, a lot of same core content. like core ideas, but they added so much with Assassin's Creed 2 that it really expanded the game dramatically. Now, I didn't really play Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 so much, but that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, there's so much that's been added that the core game is still there, right? The RPG elements, for example, are not going to overbear on the skill elements and such. But the amount of expansion in every element, sound, aesthetics, level design, weapon feel, number of units, individual unit combat, shields are here, and shields really change how the game plays mechanically. We still were not good against it. It's going to be interesting and fresh to play against. We're gonna if you're gonna have 400 hours in this game, and you're gonna feel like a noob, I think. You're going to have 1,000 hours plus in Vermintide 1, and you're going to have 400 hours in Vermintide 2, and you're still going to be seeing new things and not quite knowing how to respond. You're still going to have fails on whatever top difficulty. Ivan asks about Bile Troll. Did they spoil that? Bile Troll. Okay, good. They did. And they talked about how it works, right? Regenerative abilities, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so Bile Troll is a great example of what I'm talking about. So Bile Troll, in some ways, plays like a mini-boss, like Ogre, but in some ways, he's got very distinct abilities. He's got the spit that has like a slow CC to it, like a slow CC, and he's got a regeneration. Like, how you play against him is interesting. And we still hadn't figured it out after 3 days of play. And what else on this? More importantly, we're going to have enough of a bilateral dialogue. They're going to be talking enough with us that if we get to the point really early in the game where we know how to trivialize one of these mini-bosses like we do with Strength Potion plus Volley Crossbow, you better believe that in a few weeks, something's going to have changed, right? The volley is going to have been changed, or the boss is going to have been changed in some way. Probably the volley in that instance. My bottom line is that the game, the different units, the way you play against them felt dramatically different. The mini-bosses were much more aggressive. And if it turns out we find a way to trivialize them, they're just going to up the ceiling. They're just going to go in and fix it. Because one of my big points to them is V1, the problem with V1 for a while now, since 1.5 and such, is players have been able to play differently, which is a good thing. But the level of threat on the top difficulty, in-game difficulty, where players don't have to go out of their way to seek more difficulty, did not go up enough. And we learned how to trivialize Ogre, Horde, Triple Special. We learned to trivialize the threats that are actually available in Vermintide. And Vermintide gets really boring when everything gets answered by immediate bolt, right? And by strength pot and annihilation. And there's going to be different things that they pursue to make sure that we don't get to trivialize. The game gets interesting when there are multiple types of threats up, and the team has to work together and use their various skills, communication, teamwork to overcome some new threat, where you're still learning, you're still growing. And in V1, we've learned quickly, even low-level parties, even level 200s without that much experience, they don't need that much experience because they just hit the delete button every time it gets interesting. And that's the key. Every time it gets interesting, they just delete the interestingness. So with V2, they're going to keep raising the ceiling and balancing and such, so the delete buttons don't exist anymore. So Troll feels tactically interesting. Yes, we're going to find some combos very early in V2 where we know how to just annihilate things, but they're going to just take those away from us and people are going to complain, but people are going to love it. People are going to love it. People are going to complain right now if we went in and just took away the ability to insta-kill everything. And we turned up the spawn rates. But the truth is, people would really be turned on by it because it's new again, because it's fresh again, because there's something to push for. It's just like in V1. I have so many friends that got really good at this game, loved the aspirational quality of Cataclysm, something to work towards, got there, achieved Cataclysm, not just one-ofs, but could beat it, could destroy it with multiple characters, and then they got bored. We can't let that happen again. We got to keep. There always has to be another mountain. So obvious solutions are going to be taken away. Anyways, I don't even remember what the original question was, so I should probably stop babbling. Bile Troll was cool. Does the loot system feel good, and is it more or less finished? There's a lot to do. They have a lot of great ideas about how to address various issues, like how to make sure there's a progression early game, that how the late game is balanceable, and that there's not people don't get locked out of builds by loot. And they have a couple other good ideas too. And they've got ideas of how to make those goals happen. And the next couple weeks has got to be where they stop building new features. Again, they built an incredible number of new features, but I think Panda sits in the day like the game's like 80% done. I'd agree in that the big rocks, the big map things and stuff, like most of it's there, but they got to stop adding stuff and they got to start finishing stuff. So it'll be there soon enough. And like every other big game that's been released, and for time immemorial, like years now, it's going to get released in a state that's playable, that's interesting, and it's mostly focused on polishing around the first 100 to 200 hours of play, and we'll get back to the late game. I'm an ultra late game player. I have over 2,000 hours, blah, 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 blah. But I absolutely know everyone on our side, so me, Panda, again, Pyromancer, Crindy, we all knew that the big focus has to be making sure the game feels fun, and there's cool stuff to do, and that new player experience the first 200 hours feels good. We'll get to the rest when we get there. And that's exactly the same mentality that their team has. Do missions have randomized branching? Yeah, there's some of that. There's some of that DuckTales asked if the demand is branching like supply and demand and such. The issue with that is every time you do that, it's almost as much work as building 2 whole maps. So they have to decide whether it's worth. And I think with all the heroic deeds and other mutators and stuff, we'll get lots of variety out of the maps, even without explicit things. But, I mean, everybody loves Khazad Crow, with the up and down path feeling so different. So there's going to be some. There's some now. There'll be some more probably, but there's not going to be an enormous amount. It's not going to be like every map has 3 different branches, because it's just not economical. For that much work, they could have built, a whole nother main mission and such. Tomes and Grims. I don't know, guys. Are Tomes and Grims a big part of the game? Our big point to them was this: that Vermintide is fun. In this, there's a lot of things that are fun about games, but I think one of the biggest motivators in games is feeling that you've progressed, right? Feeling that you can improve, that you lost because of things that you did or didn't do, and that you could have done better. And I think a lot of the impetus to improve comes from losing. But the problem with a lot of RPG, MMOified type games is when you lose, you don't progress. And gamers are smart and gamers are stupid. Gamers are smart in that they're quick to identify obvious goals, loot progression, right? And to figure out how to maximize efficiency on meeting those goals. But they're really stupid in that even if those goals are not the most interesting and ultimately, what is the word I'm looking for here? Motivating to them, meaningful to them. If it looks like the game implies that, getting a lot of this number, like gold, big number of gold is a goal, gamers will do it. Because it's a difference between a game and a toy. So when you do a yo-yo, you do it, you can do it, you pull it up. It's pretty obvious pretty quickly that you could get really good at it. But a very small percentage of people who do the yo-yo go on to say, I wish I could get good at it. Whereas with like a game like Counter-Strike or Vermintide or Diablo 2, you play it and it's very obvious within that game that there are external goals that are kind of motivated by the very structure of the game. And a much larger percentage of them are motivated to work for those goals. What I'm getting at is the difference between a game and a toy is a game has a goal that is implied by the creator or the very structure of the thing. Whereas with a toy, you need to make your own goals. In games, external goals are very motivating. So gamers will get motivated by external goals and will work towards them and identify the most efficient way to do them, even when doing so is ultimately boring to them. So a lot of the job of the game designer is to find a way to make what the gamer identifies as the efficient way to pursue a goal is also one that's kind of deeply motivating. And I think a lot of deep motivation comes from what's called the mastery loop. You start from identifying you're in a state of unwellness in some way. and then you figure out ways to get to where you want to be. You pursue those things, you do it, and then ultimately you get there. It's a mastery loop, right? Just improvement. It's growth. It's exploration. That's what's cool. So for a game like Magic the Gathering, for example, that's so much about decision making and such, it's really obvious really quickly that you can get better. And since it's a one-on-one game where there's always a loser, here's my deal. This is what I've been building towards. Losing is extremely motivating in terms of mastery. It's extremely motivating because you're like, oh shit, I'm losing. That doesn't feel good. But I could have done better. And I think Vermintide, I absolutely know Vermintide has the depth of mechanics and like physical mastery of the game and strategic understanding of the game and team orientation and team builds. So there's like metagaming stuff. What builds do we have? There's like tactical stuff. What was alive? What were my decision making? And there was execution stuff. It's got everything. It's got so many things that you can try to improve on. It's got the depth to be interesting. But there's such an obvious goal in leveling up and getting gear that, and gamers respond so strongly to the, oh, I got more is better, more, like more is spelled M-O-A-R, that they will do things that are so detrimental to their long-term enjoyment of whatever they're doing and their long-term growth as a gamer and as a person in order to maximize some kind of an ultimately trivial reward. And no fault on these people. These are smart people, right? These are people who go home after being engineers or just whatever it is they are. These are smart people that respond to it. It's just kind of how we're built. So as a developer, you have to be really cognizant of this in how you design. And I think one of the worst parts about Vermintide 1 is how poorly you are rewarded for doing the things that are most instructive, that help lead towards growth and interest. So the problem with Vermintide 1 is it's so much more rewarding for a mid-tier player to just spam through Nightmare. Extrinsics, I call these extrinsic rewards. Intrinsics are the other ones, like growth and stuff. Just spam through Nightmare. And that cannot be the case again. Instead, there has to be a lot of reward for winning. So let's say they wanted to make a map. Let's say they wanted to make the average map 30 minutes. And at the end of it, there's going to be this 5-minute, really challenging event or something, right? Like really pushing you, like White Rat level hard. Okay, great. Don't make the map 30 minutes long, 25 minutes of a whole map, and then 5 minutes of this craziness at the end, right? Because there's no, if it have the same reward as another map. Instead, make the map 35 minutes long, make a checkpoint after the full 30-minute map that's identical to a normal 30-minute map, and give you a bonus for making the last 5 minutes. So people feel like they were rewarded for their time, for pushing themselves, for doing what ultimately is better for their soul anyways, right? So make sure that your incentives are lined up in such a way that people at least don't feel like they're being overly penalized. It doesn't have to be perfect. You'll never make it perfect. But you don't want people to feel like they're penalized for doing what they want to do. You don't want the extrinsic system to be so unaligned, so misaligned with the intrinsic system that players that are getting pretty good at this game and want to keep playing your game feel like they have to choose between extrinsic progression, leveling gear, etc., and intrinsic progression, game knowledge, growth, mastery. You don't want these to get in the way with each other. That's one big thing. And the other big thing that Vermintide 1 didn't do a great job with, it was a runaway success beyond, I'm sure, far beyond the wildest dreams of the devs, right? So it's not really their fault. And they've had a whole 2 years to think about this. The other thing they can't do this time is they can't make it, remember there's a difference between a game and a toy. A game has incentives and things and obvious goals within the framework of whatever the design is. So it could be a bigger number. It could be a list of people who have completed X. Here's a big one I have that I really want to push with them again on a future meeting, is there should be a Mimo meter, right? The problem with D3, with the Greater Rift system, is in order to it be on the leaderboard of who's doing well, you have to use the meta build, right? Because obviously it's slightly better than the alternative, And even if you played extremely well and came up with a new build, but it turned out to be 5% less good than the meta build, you just look like an ass. You know, it doesn't matter. So I think there should be like a Mimo meter, right? So some sort of algorithm that looks at how interesting your build is relative to the average. Because no matter how well you balance, there will always be a meta. This is a rule. This is like an iron rule of gaming. There will be a meta. So let people feel like they're rewarded for playing differently. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is, in order to keep ourselves interested, we had to learn how to self-impose restrictions, make mods. Like, we had to go out and find our own goals. Very few people, and how many people look at mods and self-imposed restrictions and self-imposed meme builds and spicy, interesting builds and challenges and stuff and go, that's not Vermintide. And they're not wrong. People really like it when a game gives them goals and gives them rules. By rules, I usually use the word conventions. This is the way you're allowed to play, and this is what you're trying to do, right? That I can come up with my own conventions, my own rules, true solo, right? And over time, by trying to help other people get into it, I can make it a consensus in the community. Many people agree that playing true solo in various ways is a legitimate way to play the game and a legitimate challenge, but it is a fraction compared to the number of people who think playing Cataclysm is a goal. Fatshark, as a developer, has a tremendous ability and power to create conventions, or to take conventions that we ourselves as a community create and raise them to the level of a consensus by bringing them into the game. So the goals in the game, heroic deeds, cough cough, heroic deeds. That's modders out there. If you build really cool mods that are balanced and feel like part of the game, they're going to become part of the game. Okay, cool. Bring those within the game so that you don't have to be someone who responds to toys. You can just be your average gamer. Like, what percentage of Magic the Gathering players say themselves, you know, I think Magic would be more fun if you drew 2 cards, or you could play cards upside down and use them as rainbow lands. Like, what percentage of MTGers, Magic the Gatherers, decide to make their own household rules and still feel motivated to try to win on those rules? Fractions of a percent, right? But what percentage of them feel that playing hard on standard is a thing to do? An enormous percent. There's a big difference when the convention, some arbitrary convention, some set of rules of how to play and goals, becomes a consensus. It's much more motivating. And it's reasonable. So Vermintide 2 has to do a much better job of bringing conventions that are interesting and making them a consensus within the core game. And motivating them. So that means lists of people that have achieved things, Mimo meters, seasonal type stuff. It means cool cosmetics that go with it. It means highlighting the win of the week or something and other stuff to make it so that people who do cool things feel like the thing that they did was cool, is generally accepted as a thing that's cool, and is what's the word I'm looking for here? Validated by the official Fatshark games as a thing that was worth doing. So that's the other thing V1 did not do a great job of, is always building and allowing other mountains to be built, right? And then bringing them into the game experience. Okay, I know I've been babbling for a long time. Yeah, G-Man, I don't even remember what the default question is. So one of the things Panda said to me after our big meeting with the devs, we had a bunch of them, but we had like a long one on Wednesday afternoon with the guys that are responsible for like meta and progression and balance and these sorts of big in the AI spawn system and such, like the guys that do the nuts and bolts of what makes Vermintide. And he looks at me afterwards. He's just like, sometimes it's just exhausting to be in the room with you. Like, I could just keep fucking talking all day. Okay. One-handed shield versions. Okay, important note. The devs are fully ready to accept that shield spam being charge attack was not so fun. And my cursory feel of messing with it, Panda's cursory, and then I think Panda played it and Crindy played the shields, is that they felt good. And their mobility felt relatively on par with the one-handers. And one of my big notes to them is that the two-handers, like X Sword, if that were in, but that's like the canonical problem with two-handers in Vermintide 1. X Sword is like the poster child for it, in my opinion, is when you swing with it, you have very slow move speed during it. And if you have a long, slow attack that's got a nice cleave, but there's a lot more armor units and shields, it's going to be hard to get value. So that has to be fixed. But my opinion going in is that in general, two-handers and single target weapons are going to have much more of a general purpose in V2, an organic purpose without having to buff them through the roof because of the variety of enemy types. I mean, it's just not hordes and isolated Stormvermin anymore. There's a lot more to it. Okay, what else? G-Man asked about winning versus losing. I already babbled the hell out of it. It was a good question. If Elf is... God, is Elf gonna... What in the world are you talking about, Joe? So Prop Joe's wondering if Elf is going to be the one that really just kind of feels fun and kills things. I have that concern. And I think we're going to make that concern voiced with specific feedback as the beta comes out to make sure that, because a lot of people like to play DPS, right? And I think every class should have the opportunity to be the aggressive class if that's how the person wants to play. And I think that's already likely to be the case as it is now. For example, the Slayer on Barden just dominates things, but it's got to be an option for everyone. Is there going to be overlap for characters and careers? I think career-specific weapons is going to be the exception rather than the rule. Do the special director, the AI director, do coordinated effort to amplify their effects? In other words, Ratling's laying down suppressive fire with Globadiers. So DuckTales is asking about, do the specials have explicit programming that helps them try to work together to be more effective? I don't think so. And I didn't see enough of it to know. I think it is a great idea. It's something I've been thinking about lately. And maybe it's something that can be done in the future. I don't think so, but that doesn't mean it's not the case. But the bottom line is that, as always with Vermintide, the more varied the enemies are in the map, the game gets exponentially harder. So, for example, the difference between 6 clan rats and the 6 clan rats and a storm vermin is it's not linear. One storm vermin is this hard. 6 clan rats is this hard. Put together, it's not this plus this equals this. It's multiplicative, and it's still the case in V1, V2, even without explicit coding. Okay. Is it easier to, in other words, so Doug is asking about, for example, is basically every weapon, like one-handers, the little slashing one-handers, felt like they didn't really have much of a way of being effective against armor. My opinion, my take on the weapon feel is that every weapon I used felt like it had swing patterns that were built around doing every type of job. So every weapon, now of course some are going to be better at some things than other things, but in general I feel like everyone's going to feel like they have a way to take out of an armor target, and a way to survive during a horde, a way to be effective against resistant, but maybe not that last one. Yeah, of course my Russian pronunciation's terrible. You can always tell when someone's an autodidact because they don't know how to pronounce anything. Did FOV change? I don't know. We all played on our default FOV and it felt fine. Are any new types of events that aren't barrels and chain depots around? Absolutely. Absolutely. There are a couple of them, and some of them are rather interesting. So, yes, the events are going to be more interesting, and there's not going to be so much of that sit around and wait for X minutes and be bored. Like, I didn't see anything like Well Watch. Okay, here's a cool thing. Just FYI, here's a tidbit. There's going to be the long map is the canonical thing, right? Because long maps, if you look at the telemetry for V1, long maps, tome full book maps, is what gets played on general. But people like secondary maps. They like side maps, right? So how do you balance that? Because the problem is it's really hard to balance how extrinsic incentives, in other words, loot per minute and such, with these two types of maps. So what do you do? If only there were some type of way that they could reward people with new challenges that allow them to play differently, but not allow it be in part of the core game and mess with the core progression and new player experience. Oh, right, they're called heroic deeds. So heroic deeds, you know, none of this is confirmed. This is just spitballing, but heroic deeds could mean maps too. It could mean mutators. It could mean total changes to the way plays are played. It could mean restrictions in how you play, right? All traits are shut off or something like that. But it also could mean maps, or it could mean combinations of any of these things. I'm sure it can mean other things too. Like, they have big plans. And a lot of these big plans for what heroic deeds can be comes from us, right? It comes from the ways we try to keep the game fresh, but bring it into the core game so it stops being a toy and starts being a game, right? Again, these are smart, very, very passionate, and interested into Vermintide developers. And they spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I think they've got a lot of great ideas. Now, everything's not going to be in place for release because you got to focus on new player experience, first couple hours, 100 hours, etc. But they are already committed to long-term making sure the game stays fresh. Like this is like a flagship game for them, and it shows the amount of like love and TLC and into the very small details, into the biggest stuff in Vermintide 2 is palpable. You can watch a I think the combat in Witcher 3 is terrible. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But the bottom line is, if you watch Witcher 3, if you watch a demo for it or something, you're like, oh, it's kind of cool. I mean, it looks kind of pretty and such. But when you actually go into the world and you get to step into it and you feel how big it is and how beautiful it is and such, it's a totally different experience than seeing it on YouTube. And you're all going to have the same experience. I could sit here and tell you 10 times over the next hour like how expansive and big and cool the maps feel, but it's still going to be like, it's going to hit you. You're going to be shocked. Hello, Borkin. Thanks for the follow. So JOB is talking about how big content updates in Dota 2 feel like they really change the game. They're going to do big balance patches like that shake up the game, but this is I played Dota 1 a lot, and I played Dota 2 somewhat. I was more of a Dota 1 guy because that was like my high school, college experience. The progression between Dota 1 and Dota 2, this feels even bigger. This feels like the progression between original Dota 1, like All-Stars right before Dota 2 comes out, to 3 years into Dota 2. There's so many things that have been changed and built and made a lot bigger. It feels very, very big. It took years for Dota 2 to really change how the creep system works, how neutral experience works, to add things like the fountains and stuff like that, whatever they're called. Is that what they're called now? But that really changed how the core game feels. And we're getting that 2 years after V1, which is really cool. How do I feel about Panda's idea of adding a pig that would trigger "bless this ravaged body" sound effect? I don't know, but we forgot to talk about how we forgot to talk about "holy shit, man, bless this ravaged body" with Magnus. So Magnus is the guy who does basically all the voice lines, who makes the characters feel like characters. And my compliment to him was this game, like the level of characterization feels like Baldur's Gate 2 level of distinctness, right? Like they really feel alive in their interactions and stuff. He said a good chunk of that actually came from the voice actors. At least like the thing that makes Kruber really feel like Kruber comes from the guy who does Kruber. By the way, would you guys all respond to this now? Would you be interested in having Magnus come on and talk about what he does? Like, he expressed interest. Obviously, they have to figure out on their side of the house if this is the kind of thing that they want to do after V2 drops or after the beta comes out, so he can talk more openly. But would that be someone you're interested in talking to? One. And two, what other people would you be interested in hearing from? If they're willing to come on, right? They're very busy people, especially right now. But who else would you be interested to talk? We could talk about like the people who are responsible for coming up with weapon swing patterns and stuff. We could talk. I don't think we're going to get the guy who's in charge of the AI. I feel like he's an intensely like very focused on doing his job person. Like he just wants to do his job. But he seemed really bright. But we could look at for other people too. We can talk about level design guys and come on and tell stories. So, anyways, let me know who you'd be interested in hearing from, because your level of enthusiasm for hearing from them will have a lot to do with whether or not they come and talk to us. I think Fatshark has done a really good job. One of the things people have said for the last 2 years about what's good about Vermintide is the developers have done a much better job of being open with the community, and I think they have an even bigger opportunity to continue to expand that and come and talk to us and tell us. So, for example, there are mechanics in Vermintide 1 that we really still haven't totally figured out. Like, they've put so much TLC into making the game feel good and being clever and stuff. And I say, don't hide that. Come tell us about the things you did so we can appreciate your work and how it came up and the ideas you were thinking of. Like, come on. This is a really mature community, and I think it would be awesome to have more interaction. So anyways, who do you want to talk to and what do you want to talk about? Now, what the hell was I talking about? Do I feel like they were trying to push the limit with Death on the Reich and come up with new ways and see what it's going to feel like? Totally. Totally. And they were also trying to figure out things like that with the events, like how many rats can we all kill and stuff, right? They were definitely playing with the idea of how to keep the game fresh by changing how the game feels and adding new types of events. Here's a really funny tidbit. The guy who made that, who did a genius job, who I'm almost positive got a raise, a promotion, and a vacation for doing the boat event and such. That's an elevator, you know. That's a stay and slay event. That's a survive the horde event. But it feels so much movement. It feels so dynamic. It's totally transformative. But anyways, the bottom line is, if you're hinting at, are they trying to come up with ways to keep the game fresh and to do like community events to keep the game enthusiastic and exciting? Absolutely. You should think of all the little things they've done in V1 in the last few months as test runs for V2 for sure. So Jay says something along the lines of, if Fatshark understands the stuff what I was talking about when I was talking about, like, I'm almost positive this when I was talking about, rewards for failure and lining up incentives with playing well. They have whole meetings where that's what the kind of things they talk about, right? They have really smart guys sitting around talking about this stuff all day. Actually, it's probably a pretty like exciting place to work. I don't think you go into game design to make money. And you don't go into game design to get everybody in the community that you design for going out of their way to say what a great job you did. Because I can't think of like a saltier audience group of any other. help me think. Is there any other industry where the people who love your game or love what you do also tend to be the people that talk shit about you publicly all the time? But the bottom line is they're very passionate, which is really cool. So Sneg was saying that people want less structure by the end game. I think they want the structure to be more optional by the end game or more flexible. But I think a lot of people feel like a game is over when there's no more structure and no more goals. That's been my opinion. Thanks for the sub, Arch. Oh, so let me shill for myself for a second. If you have Amazon Prime and you want to support me or somebody else, one person per month, and you have to keep doing it every month, but you can do like a Twitch Prime subscription. And that's just taking money from Amazon and giving it to a Twitch streamer. So if you have Amazon Prime and you have a couple minutes, give someone that you like that think makes great content a subscribe. It's free. You have to do it every month though. And I think it's like $250 in their pocket a month. So it's not nothing. But if 10 people did it, it means I could get a green screen a month, for example, for me. But for other people, it could be something else. No, Holy Sigmar blesses Ravage Body. I'm refunding. Well, worst cases, we'll mod it in. I don't understand the success of this game. Isn't Warhammer a rip-off of World of Warcraft anyways? So, funny story about that, All Tall 35. Warcraft is a rip-off of Warhammer. So, Warcraft, Blizzard, I don't think they were called Blizzard then. Were they called Blizzard North? I don't remember who they were called back then. Was trying to work with Games Workshop, the guy who owns the guys who own the Warhammer IP, to do an RTS, a real-time strategy. And the Games Workshop didn't think they were going to be successful, so they pulled support for it. So the Warcraft guys went in and made Warcraft anyways, and basically used all the IP of Warhammer with slight changes to story and such. So it actually goes the other way around. It's just more like Games Workshop did a bad job. The Warhammer guys did a bad job of recognizing how important the video game industry was going to be. Because at that point, they were still making money hand over fist on the miniature market, so they probably didn't care enough about it. So they badly misread the market. Are there more weapons with special attacks like Rapier? In fact, I didn't notice any special attacks. Push stab is more of a thing, though. Just saying. Did they remove mechanics like QQ switching, block revive? So I don't think everyone on the action team, people responsible, so it's a joint team. It's not just a specialized team, but it's a joint team between animators and people who do more like game dev hardcore stuff, like what is the pattern and what are the numbers and that kind of thing. But that team, I don't think they were all really aware of how much of a thing QQ cancel is. But I showed them. This is my opinion on obscure mechanics. For single player or co-op games, I like them. I think the long as they don't become so absurd and the mechanics of doing them are so complicated that to play at a high level requires like macros or something, then I don't like it. But as long as it's just like if you know how to play and optimize a little bit, you do a little better, I love it. In PvP games, I'm less supportive because it makes the difference. Like, I don't know if you guys play Jedi Knight and Jedi Academy and such, but it makes the difference between a high-level player and a low-level player, like, so utterly different that they have no chance. So for the PvP game, I like it if there's a couple core mechanics, like a little bit of bunny hopping in Counter-Strike, or the movement mechanics in Quake 3, and then Quake Champions and stuff. I like a couple. But in a single player or a PvE type game, I don't mind if there's like 20 different random mechanics, because it gives people a so here's my thing. RPG progression type elements, obvious explicit decisions like what traits to bring, those beg people to ask themselves the question, how do I do better? Strategy. And strategy makes them want to come on to the community, right? So again, complexity breeds strategy, breeds community. So I'm all for the extra progression elements in V2 because it's just going to mean so many more people log on to the Reddit and get into the community. And I think once you get into the community, you're way more likely to stay. And I want V2 to be huge because I think it's going to be an awesome game. 1. 2, I think mechanical tricks give people who get really invested in a game, it feels really good to be able to pull off all sorts of random stuff. It just feels good when you pull off a ladder reload or a revive reload and then shoot the assassin like that. It feels good when you pull off something obscure. So I think that obscure mechanics give people reasons to come onto YouTube, and after they played 1,000 hours, it gives them a reason to play 2,000 hours. So I don't want them all to go, but QQ cancel might be a little abusive. Okay, enough on that. With all the heroic deeds, so JL is asking, with all the heroic deed stuff, did they think that it'd feel punishing that your deed is taken away after you complete it? What if you get one that's really good, play it once, and you're done, and then you get just random stuff from then on, and it feels disincentivizing? So I think what I talked a lot about with them personally, I thought was a big deal, was I love playing the game. I love Vermintide. I love playing Vermintide, and I love it when it gets interesting. And mutators and changes the spawn system, blah, 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 and all these self-imposed restrictions, yada, 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 all the ways we found to make the game fresh make the game fresh. So I don't want it to be the case that I have to grind. My big line to them was, Vermintide should never be the case for every level of player, from the very beginning to the very end, where you have to eat your vegetables before you get to have your dessert, right? You shouldn't have to do things you don't want to do in order to do the things you do want to do. So I think what we're going to see is we're going to see that there are some heroic deeds that do kind of random things, like the challenge, the drop all your tomes at the end of Garden of Moor in a hole one. Like, I think they'll be less map specific than that, but kind of random. Like, those ones will end up being one-timers with a cool reward, and it's just a one-time way to play it fresh. But heroic deeds that are more about changing how you play are going to be more repeatable. So I think True Solo, for example, is going to be, you can just do it anytime you want, and you can mix and match. So I want to play Onslaught True Solo. Turn this deed on, turn this deed on. The user interface is not done for all this. The decisions on what this is going to look like for the long term for Vermintide 2, they simply have not all been made yet. So after we play a bit of the beta and Vermintide 2 comes out and we're enjoying the new player experience and we're getting into the deeds, it's going to be really important that in a constructive manner we come together in a community and get a couple talking points and make sure that we're heard, both in the Reddit and then YouTube and such, or an article, any of those purposes. And I think that the result of this trip, and I'm sure you guys have heard by now, this is not the only trip that's going to happen, right? There's going to be other groups of people that come. So there's going to probably be brand new players to feel new player experience. There's going to be people who can help them push for like PR type perspective. So I guarantee this, I'm almost positive it'll be like a streamer type one. I don't know. I'm not an insider knowledge right here. I'm speculating based off the fact that they said they're going to have more trips. I don't know the details of those trips. I'm speculating based off common sense. But the bottom line is the result of this, and I think, is the developers more than ever will appreciate how reasonable we are and what a good source of information and insight we are. So I think we're going to have more direct interaction with the devs. So I think we're going to have a great opportunity to make sure that V2 is the game we want it to be for the long term. So even if it looks funky on day one, you can put up the rage post a little bit, but try to make sure, listen, these guys who are so passionate that they go out drinking with us till 4 a.m. and then go in the next morning and work. And for them, it wasn't a special trip to Sweden. It was Tuesday. You get it? It was Tuesday. It was Wednesday. It was just a day. They read what you write, right? So if you want to be heard, it's okay to give critical feedback, constructive critical feedback. Just know that the people making this are investing a lot of their heart and soul and their blood, sweat, and tears into this. So make sure you levelize that stuff, right? It's like if you had a professor in college and you knew that the way he was giving tests was bad for the following reasons, don't go rage on ratemyprofessor.com, right? It's way better to try to talk to them as a person. So every time you write a post on Reddit, imagine there's a really good chance that the person who made that decision or designed that asset is going to read it. They all lurk because they don't want to get inundated and they have very busy lives and jobs too. But there's a good chance that if you, like, let's say you had very specific feedback on a map and you put a post up and you explained what you liked, what you didn't, and how you liked it and didn't, or made a video where you walk through the map and explain what worked and didn't, you better believe there's like a 97% plus possibility that they're going to watch it without anybody giving it to them. And if you did a really good one, and I thought it was really good, you better believe I'd be sending it to Hedge, right? And then Hedge would give it to them. So if you get good quality feedback together and you put it together in some form that's intelligible, they're going to see it. Okay, so just a note. Be the change you seek. If you really like Vermintide and you want it to be a great Vermintide 2 to be great, there are things that you can do. No one in this community is helpless. Okay. Is the UI menu, etc. in V1 is horrible? I don't think it's horrible. They're aware that the UI needs some loving, and what I expect to see is that no matter what we get on day one, there's going to be a lot of complaining, but then Prop Joe, who's here right now, Prop Joe, calling Prop Joe, will make his own custom user interfaces, and then they will bring him into the core game. That's what I expect to happen. So day one, everyone's going to be unhappy with the user interface. We gave some specific feedback. My specific feedback to them was one of the options should be vanilla V1, because that will minimize the complaints from our community. Because even if it isn't perfect, at least you're used to it, and then we'll work on it from there. Okay. Since they already spoiled the existence of halberds, Goat's asking about, did you get to play with them? I played with them around in the room. Did they feel different from Great Axe? All the pole arms felt very different than their kind of obvious counterparts, and they were different. I really like Spear. I think Spear was my favorite, the elf Spear. Jab, jab, slash, jab is light attack, slash, heavy charge. And the way the heavy charge works, it actually feels better to headshot if you jump into it, which is just going to piss off people like Entel, but it's awesome. Anyways, the stabbing weapons feel distinct from the two-handeds, which is cool. Thanks for the follow, Slark dear. So Beefire is asking, are they reducing the effectiveness of homing ranged weapons or improving the ways that enemies defend against them? Absolutely. That's as much as I'm going to say on that. Again, you heard it from here. That's all much I'm saying. Everything felt good. Nothing felt skillless. Their goal is this game is mechanically challenging, strategically challenging, and designed around high-level team play. They nailed it. They nailed it. Even though there's things to be done, they nailed it, and it'll only continue to get better from here. Okay. Do we want Magnus? Oh, I see a bunch of yeses. That's a lot of yeses. So you guys definitely would want to see some guys come on and talk about what they do. And definitely Magnus. Awesome. It would be cool if we get one of the voice actors to come talk about it too at the same time. That's a big ask. I have no idea. Like, I'm just literally spitballing here. Oh yeah, and here we go. So Seg Garcia had the idea that one of the voice actors would be cool too. Okay, somebody from the art team would be cool too, especially if they could show off some of their art. So something after the game comes off. It'd be really cool if you guys could see their level production tool. I have a suspicion that it's way more powerful than the original one. It's amazing how much they can do with just a couple clicks. These guys are like artists. They're no kidding. They're digital artists, and they're just making it beautiful in instances. And what I'm really excited about it is if V2 continues to be a big success, right? We don't have as much of a sharp drop-off from new player experience, and there's more people hanging around. The devs are going to have more of an excuse. I don't even think they need a reason. They want to make Vermintide 2 awesome. They need is an excuse, enough of an economic excuse to do it, so that such that these guys can make a few clicks of a button and make the game look like disgustingly amazing in a darkness. They could go from a bright day to darkness and add a couple like features. They could spend a day's work that's an hour's work, and they could spend a day's work and add a couple assets to make it more spooky, and they could make a Halloween version, and then they could pull across one of the mods that like Prop Joe or Grim or Ozzy or Lupo or anyone made. If it's good enough and such, and after they've done QC, this is going to take more work. That's going to be more than a day's work. Bringing mods in is not just going to be simply bringing mods in. They're going to have to do a lot of work to make sure it's good. So let me talk about this more in a minute. I'll talk more about that in a second. But then they could, the art side of it's not too bad, and we could make like a totally different experience using 99.9% of the content that's already there, which is just awesome. But the game's got to be healthy enough to justify it, of course. So anyways, let me talk for a second about that. I think the way we should conceive of the mod realm versus the core realm is the mod realm is the place that we go to test new ideas and figure out what works for V2. So when you see people like me and other streamers or just buddies on your buddy list who want to try a new mod that somebody came out, or go experiment yourself. I mean, I'm not very good, but I've managed to tweak things that other modders have done to make new experiences. Go try them. Because what you're doing today when you do that is you're the people who are going to be the front row, the front lines in identifying what's going to be part of the core game tomorrow. So I think the way you should see the modded realm is, it's going to be silliness, 1. 2, it's going to be a great place to do deliberate practice, because we'll get spawning tools, and maybe we'll get the dev tools so you can really just isolate skills. Today I want to learn how to headshot Chaos Warriors. So I'm just going to spawn Chaos Warriors with God mode, with MO, and nothing else, and just work on it. Cool. That's another purpose. And another purpose is going to be a testing ground and proving ground for new ways to play. which is awesome. And people are going to take this seriously because you're going to see that these new mods 2 months later end up in the next core release, the next big core release of V1 as a heroic deed or something. So people are going to take it seriously. And the modders, I bet you, I think the way they're going to make sure the modders are, rewarded for doing cool stuff is, if it's your mod that gets picked up, it'll be your right to name it or something like that. Or maybe it'd be really cool if they get to pick maybe what some of the, or help pick what the cosmetic reward will be for it. I think there's going to be things that they can do that are reasonable amounts of requirements of resource that aren't going to screw with the lore, etc., to make sure that we take care of the modders who have done such an amazing job of making sure that Vermintide 1 has longevity and will continue to have an even bigger role in V2. And then on our side in the community, we got to show love and respect for these guys doing these things that help make what we love to do even more fun. So again, right now, thank you to all of you, right? Aussie Man, Grass Man, Prop Joe, Unshame, Grim, Lupo. Thank you for all the work you've done. You've made this game better than it would have been otherwise, right? They asked us at one point, would the four of us still be playing if there weren't mods? And nobody hesitated. The answer was no, because there's only so much you could do within the vanilla game. They're going to continue to be an even more integral part of what makes Vermintide 2 long-term a great game. There's going to be, in my opinion, there's going to be way more 1,000-hour plus players as a proportion of players in V2 than there even were in V1. Okay, what else? So based off of hearing this, it sounds like basically you guys want to talk to anyone you can talk to, and you guys would be really excited for it. Is there still a weapon tier progression? So this is Mackenzie. Oh my god. Could you make your name harder for me to pronounce? Is there still weapon tiers and progression? Because it feels pretty weird in V1 how after 10 hours you only ever see gold encrusted exotics for the rest of forever. Ah! That is a really cool point. And that's not something I thought to bring up. You're right. So what he's talking about, Mackenzie something other, it must be like a German, is that it's kind of annoying that in V1, if you get the gold version of the weapon, even if the blue texture looks really cool, you don't get to use it anymore. That is a great point. Could you please, could you guys make sure you make a note of that and bring it up some point? That would be really cool. So basically what you're asking for, in D3 they have something, what do they call it? Where you get to make one weapon look like another weapon? Transmogrify or something? Something like a transmogrifier that still doesn't... So it's more important in Vermintide, though, that you be able to identify the type of weapon. So maybe not, you can't make your halberd look like a sword, because that's just silly. But it would be kind of cool if you could make your halberd look like, if you have the red one, at the highest tier, and you have any other tiers of it, you could make it look like the other tiers. That'd be pretty cool. Did they talk about optimization? We didn't talk so much about optimization. My suspicion, based on, this is also into cats, did they talk about optimization? We talked about it very loosely, and my impression, based off of how the game felt, even in its beta state, on a CPU that's much less powerful than my current CPU, when it was running at 90 plus FPS, with some hiccups due to some specific problems, is I think this game is going to run better on the average PC than V1 does. Is controller support in V... So Fire Productions is asking the real questions here. How is controller support for V2? Did anyone play with controllers? First of all, we didn't play with controllers. But second of all, Crindy thinks controller support is very important. So he told them about the issues we've had with controls, and he talked to them. He said, who do I need to talk to? And then he went there and he talked their ear off. So at minimum, you can know that the person who is responsible has heard from us and apprehended and understood the concern. That's one. Two, controllers, Xbox Gold has been a huge success for them. And they just know that the Xbox community is going to be very big for V2 just based off of that. This is not me giving insider knowledge. This is me reasoning as a person who spends way too much fucking time being aware of what's going on in the Vermintide community. And I've seen the Reddit numbers that happened when the gold guys got here. From that, I can know it was huge. And they're not silly, they're going to respond to that. So my opinion is that I hope they take the time to make sure it's good and spend a couple dev days making sure it's good for V2 initial. And even if it's not great for V2 initial, it's going to get there pretty soon. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what you wanted to hear, but the bottom line again is they got an earful from us. Okay. Can I talk about the mechanics? So, who is that? Cupcake wants to know, can I talk about True Flight mechanics? I can't talk about anything that specific, no. Thank you for the Twitch Prime subscriptions, guys. Muffin, Sark Deer, Solvagant. If I remind you every month, yeah, I could set up a recurring reminder for you guys. Okay. Who is joking? By the way, I'm really bad with irony. Thanks for the follow, Candy. More push devs. Yeah. Do I think there's a potential for additional enemy types to be added? I already told you there are going to be more enemies on release than even we saw. And if you know it's that easy for them to go from nothing to adding a new enemy type while they're trying to finish the game, right? They already have an enormous amount of things to do. That should give you an indication of how much effort it's required to make new enemy types. So based off of that, based off of some reasonable knowledge and some reasonable extrapolation, is my guess is we absolutely are going to see more types of enemies as the game matures. Absolutely. I don't know how they're going to monetize it. I sure hope they come up with a way to monetize it, because I want there to be good ways to pay for good content that doesn't feel abusive but is good. I know they're not doing microtransactions. Good. Don't make loot a transaction. I think that's just, it feels bad as a player to be forced to choose between shilling out money or feeling like you're not progressing efficiently. That sucks. I agree. But paying for maps is fine. I totally pay for models. I totally pay for new enemies. But I hope they can do it in such a way that doesn't split the community, which I think they can figure out. And I want there to be ways for us to continue to support them in doing what they're doing, because it's just going to make the game better. And again, I think they see this game as a game that's going to still be good. In fact, it's going to be even better. Like Warframe, for example, took years to get to the point where it's big, right? Because of continued development, because of continued infusion of ideas, and because of just accumulation, raw accumulation of stuff. And I think in some ways they're viewing V2 as their game that's going to just keep getting better. So I hope that they have reasonable ways to monetize, because I want there to be ways for us to support them so they can continue to support us and make our lives cooler. Wex, hey Jason, yep, hey Wex. Is block active, is revive reload a thing? Yeah, it is, absolutely. So is ladder revive. There'll be a lot more modders come V2, is Prop Joe. I think if there's anyone who's in a position to say if there will be or not won't be, it'll be Prop Joe. And I think there will be too, because of Steam Workshop integration. I can't talk specifics, but let me just tell you that it's very clear to me that Fatshark appreciates and apprehends the importance of modding and is going to do things to make it cool. There are pole arms. Yeah, they've already announced that. Interesting combos, power attacks that stood out. I can only talk about things that you've already seen. But again, I thought that the Knight's charge and the Slayer's leap were really cool, and I really again, I woke up in the night / was half asleep / was dreaming, thinking about playing Shade last night. So I don't know. I think they're awesome. Goat, thanks for the subscription. Yeah, I think the Twitch Prime sub is really cool because everybody already has Amazon Prime, so it's a time you can support without having to spend extra money out of your hand. And we got to get some of that Amazon money. Will we have access to the map design stuff? So we had specific conversations about them making their tools available to modders. And I think that my takeaway from it was Their answer was yes, but how? Does that make sense? Like, they want to make it happen. They just got to figure out a way to make it happen, and it's not a priority. I don't think it's a release day priority. I think it's a release day plus 2 months priority. But they're going to make sure there's something. I think that their goal is to have a definite modding support day 0 with way more supports, yada yada. But their bottom line is yes, they want to make the back end tools available to modders so that they can really do a good job with it. Salivagant, whose name I can never pronounce correctly. The reason I personally love Vermintide was that I could jump on after work and finish runs with my own playstyle, kind of thoughtless, but some mechanical skill with this type of playable. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So they have really good ideas about how to make it even better to go on and find people that have a similar idea of how they want to play and find those people without having to have 4 people on your friends list ready to play. They have some really good ideas on this, and I wish I could tell you about them because they were really excited, and the second I heard it, I was really excited. So they have ideas about how to enable kind of pub type stuff, but to make it so it's more likely that you get good pubs. Absolutely. You'll be able to play, just kind of, there'll be a lot of support for people who want to just run through a map and experience, the good feel of Vermintide mechanically, and the lore feel, and I feel like I'm actually a wizard running around in my sword and sorcery adventure, right? Without a whole lot of stress on the one hand, and on the other hand, there'll be a lot more support for hardcore players. The late game for all types of incentives and gamers, I think, is going to be much better supported. Do they integrate some of the QL mod features in V2? I didn't see any, but that doesn't mean it won't be there. I don't know the answer to that trial. He's asking, is the design tool self-developed? I think it actually might be, because remember, they're the ones who made the engine that they're using, and then they sold that engine to the same people who make AutoCAD, and I don't think those people are really using the engine anymore. So I think that the design tools and the dev tools might be self-published too. I think they might be their IP. I don't have the right answer to that, though. The bottom line is the CEO in the room and such talking about making these back-end tools available to modders and to the public, and even to people who just want to make level guides so we can make top-down pictures or fly-throughs, was supportive and enthusiastic. And I got the sense that the answer was legally yes, conceptually yes, technically how. That was my impression. But these aren't guaranteed. Again, these are not guarantees. These aren't promises. These are just, an assessment of what they care about and what they think is important. I think they're going to want to do it. None of these are promises. So if somebody puts a list of things I've said after together and says, this is what's going to happen, no. You have to understand how I'm talking about this. This is my impression of what they care about. Separate universes, modded and unmodded, they've already said that publicly. I'm like 5 minutes behind chat. Yeah, but if I'm not 5 minutes behind chat, I'm going to miss people. Plus, it forces you to keep watching, so I might get to your question, right? No, not talking about that. Not talking about that. Dedicated hipster servers. I love it. I don't know. So Sukin1 says, don't encourage paying for enemies. It changes the gameplay too much. Cosmetics and maps are okay. Yeah, you might be right. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Did I freeze my game, or am I out of things? Oh, did I finally hit the bottom? Whew. Okay. Good. I did it. I got to the end of the questions. I've exhausted you guys. I probably only said on the order of 10 things that Hedge is freaking out about right now. I tried hard not to say too much, but I wanted to say enough about, how they see the game. So what I didn't want to do was at all imply what they're thinking of doing is what they're going to do. I didn't want to imply that anything I'm saying is promises. That's why they don't want us to talk very much, right? They don't want us to make promises and then they go back on that promise when what they were really doing was spitballing, because they have a million good ideas. Because again, they're very passionate, very creative people. They could come up with 100 features that are amazing and 100 things they want to do that are amazing, like providing the map tools. But this even the CEO talking about the fact that he'd love that to be the case doesn't mean it's possible, because there might be like huge legal or technical implications that he can't see when he's spitballing in a meeting. So I need everyone here to be mature and to be an adult and understand that what I'm trying to paint a picture of is what I wanted you guys to get a sense of who they are as people, how they see the game, and how they are as developers and what their dream is for the game. Because they've, as good a job as they've done making themselves accessible to us. And again, Vermintide, the community here, we've had pretty good access to the developer, much better than like any Blizzard game could ever fucking say. That's two for the swear jar. Somebody reminds me later. But the bottom line for this is nothing I'm saying here is like supposed to be, this is the God's honest, this is what's going to happen. So please don't take it that way. Please don't spread it as that way. I wanted to paint a picture, not chisel things in stone. I wanted to this is like a fucking pointillist picture, right? Where I'm putting little pieces together here and there so you guys can get a sense of what the whole is. And the whole you should come away with is that this next game is Vermintide to its core. It is a team-oriented action game. You feel like you're, no kidding, you're this wizard, you're this knight. And all these RPG elements are enabling the playstyle to feel more unique and different than ever before. Right? You can be the support, you can be the tank, you can be the range character, the melee backstabber. It feels really good, and that the people making this game are talented, passionate, in love with what they do, and care deeply about this game being successful, and have really good ideas about what was wrong with V1 and what they can do to make it better in V2, and are really close to capitalizing on a good chunk of them. This is a game that's, again, extremely feature-rich, is 80% there. The next 20% is going to be very hard for them, because they're going to have to make a lot of decisions, and there's no way that they can make those decisions perfectly, because they have to make guesses about how people are going to respond. What's the meta going to look like? Yada, yada, yada. But they've already committed. They've already committed from the highest level on down to making stabs in the dark, and then continuing to modulate, to add features, to do balance patches, to change how the pub system works, whatever it takes to make sure that the end player has a good time. What is a career I'm most excited about? I actually don't know the answer to that question. I don't know the answer to the question, Lexicus. It might be Shade. I feel like the Wizard in particular still had a lot of love left to be given, so I wasn't quite sure. And some of the other ones I think are really cool too, and I didn't get a chance to play on it. Could you elaborate what melee-only characters... I can't say too much about that. I can tell you, Jo, I can't tell you too much about like what the final's going to be like, because what we saw is not the final, and what we saw is not totally public, and it's too specific. But I can say is I've played a lot of melee-only games lately, and they're really fun. So I think it's cool. I can't really talk about release. That's way too specific. So Captain Cass is asking about release dates. I can echo what Panda said earlier this week, which is you should look at what's changed to the pre-order dates, right? To the last purchasable pre-release date on Steam, and you should infer information from that. But you should infer information from that without feeling that anything is locked in stone. Because again, like anyone else who's making public promises, you want to meet those promises, but you also want to make sure that whatever you do is going to be successful, and it's a competition between these two things. So this is the same economics and the same in public perception issue that every developer has to face, and Fatshark's no different. So, anyways, my bottom line is that I already love Vermintide, and I already pretty much knew I could trust these guys based off of the quality of the game and the little snippets I've seen and all the interviews I've read and watched of the developers over the last couple years. But going and meeting them in person, it made me, as soon as I saw the game and as soon as I talked to the guys, those two things together, my level of trust for V2 and the future of V2 went to like 100%. This is going to be a slam dunk like Vermintide 1 never was. And Vermintide 1 is amazing. It's my favorite game I've ever played. And I've played a lot of games. Like, I've played like every action sword and sorcery game since Hexen. I played Hexen. I played what the hell was it? What was the other big one where you could kick people into spikes and stuff that had the PvP? It was really ahead of its time. What was it called? Dark Messiah. I played Dark Messiah quite a bit. I played a lot of them. DOTR release date PTSD, Ivan says. Yeah, Dark Messiah. So I think that you should... There were... Remember how they told us with Death on the Reich there were back-end issues that were outside their control? You should take them at their word. You should take them at their word. But what you also should know is the back-end system is... They keep telling us it's better than before, right? Well, I think it's like revolutionarily better than it was before for V2. So the amount of work it requires for them to create new things and get them into the game is lower than it was before. Chivalry is the one game that was rather popular that I did not play much of. I played a little of it. And it felt too much like a fighter game to me, which has never been very attractive to me. Because it was all about like feinting and combos and stuff. I played a lot of Mountain Blade. What the hell? I mean, I could just literally go through my Steam. I obviously played all of, for whatever reason, I played Skyrim and Oblivion and all the difficulty mods that tried to make it actually feel like a combat game, even though it never was. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Hexen was really cool, but I really love the movement mechanics. So I think I'm getting to the point where I'm babbling. Yeah, Dark Messiah was a great game. I think it was way ahead of its time. So I did play Dying Light, and I loved the movement mechanics. I thought they were really good. I thought the combat was not nearly as good as Vermintide. I thought Vermintide's mechanics, even though they're not like super realistic and such, I thought they had that great quality of being learnable easy, but then allowing you to get really good and make amazing things happen. All right, whatever. So if more questions come up, we can address. Hopefully I haven't given Hedge any heart attacks. I was just checking my Discord to see if I got any. Please shut the hell up! You're saying too much. I really hope I didn't say too much. I hope I didn't say too much, but I think I didn't. Yeah, I don't know. This is another thing you can... I think I mentioned this, but I should mention it some more. They have a whole... a multidisciplinary team whose job it is... Oh, what am I doing? To think about how the different weapons feel, to make the swing patterns interesting, to make sure that they can balance around using multiple things and chaining in different ways, and what block cancel is going to feel like, and whether the combo feels good, and that kind of thing, and what it's going to be used for. Like, they have a lot of people. They have probably double the dev time right now than they did for V1, and they've had all the lessons of V1, and I think it's going to feel really good. I think the game's going to feel really good. And they were eating up feedback we had, like specific feedback. Like, it feels like, this weapon does this into this, and then if you light attack out of the heavy, it goes to this one. But I feel like maybe it should be this one. And also, like, the angle. Oh, another thing I mentioned in the video is headshotting feels a lot easier than before for like complicated reasons that aren't important to go into. But headshotting is a lot more consistent than it is in V1. Okay, could you guys give me 2 minutes to get some water and pee? We'll play some stuff, and I'll answer some questions, and then maybe we'll get some people in here and we'll do some team stuff. So I'll keep talking about this as it comes up. BRB.